okay, this is this project and it lives in this world, and these are the kinds of colors that we're using, and these are the kinds of images we should be thinking about, and we shouldn't be straying too far from that. Like I'm basically working on like 3 projects right now. And each one has to be its own flavor. And it's funny because like every time I write a song or we write songs together, it's like, oh, well, which part of which piece where does this song fit? Like, does that belong? Should I be singing that? Should you be singing that? Should we be singing that together? Like, I don't know, but I'm open to these things.
Yeah. Do you have any rituals or routines that you do either to get inspired or stay inspired?
For me, like eating well is really important for creativity. Like food is really important to me, and I also love to cook. So like I find that to be a really great way to take a break from the work. Like I love to be working, and then go cook for an hour and like enjoy some food and then come back, or if it's at the end of the day, it's like a really great way for me to kind of like buzz down off of the high frequency creative work. And I don't know, like cooking for me is very zen, and it's also very like musical in a way. There's so many parallels between food and music, in my opinion.
Interesting.
And also just like, I don't know, having good coffee and having good dark chocolate is important for me. Like I love to have some chocolate in the studio. Shout out to Lidgate Farms on Hawaii, making the best dark chocolate.
All right. I'll put a link in the show notes. People can check it out.
It's my buddy who has a chocolate farm and a recording studio in Hawaii. And like every time you're in the studio doing a project, and I've done a handful of projects there's always just like a massive bowl full of dark chocolate covered cacao nibs, which I don't know if you've ever had like cacao nibs, but it's basically like the crunchy raw version of the little cacao bean. And it's just like the most high vibration health food that you can eat. It's just loaded with antioxidants. And like, I don't know, when you're in the studio with a bunch of people and everyone's like eating that chocolate and they're getting into it, it's just like, it's a good thing, man.
Is it like caffeinated? Do people like get buzzed?
Yes. Yeah. You get a total buzz from eating dark chocolate. Yeah. It'll give you energy. You should not eat that before you go to sleep. Yeah.
Dude, we've talked about a lot of things and it's been super interesting. What's one thing that you would recommend to either do or not do if you're getting started in like the composing, scoring world?
I would say, the most important thing is just to find community that you like working with, that you can work with, that likes working with you. I don't know. One thing that I found when I got out to LA was like, LA is kind of cliquey, like a high school, there's like this clique over here that makes this kind of content, and these guys over here that make this kind of content, and like they like to work with the people that they know how to work with, that they like to work with already, and they're not really bringing on new people. So as someone who's like trying to start on sort of bigger creative projects like that you can't do by yourself. Like the problem with being a film composer is you can't do that alone. You need a film to compose. Like you need community, so you need to have these relationships with people who are, creating content. So I would say that the most important thing is to form relationships with like producers, directors, even like editors, people who are in there who can suggest you. Like 9 times out of 10, it's the director choosing the composer. Sometimes it's the client choosing the composer. Like sometimes it's the producer, but it's usually the director. And like if you can find some directors who are making stuff that you like, and you can make stuff that they like, and you like working together, like that's how you form a career. And it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, like it's an easy thing to say. Like I can say, go out and meet directors. And I've said that to a lot of people, and a lot of people have said that to me. And I'm like, yeah, it's actually a really hard thing to do. Like you kind of need to come up with a strategy, or like at least have some kind of lead in your life that you can follow. Like, oh, maybe some guy who's like a grip on set at this studio or whatever, and he can connect you with this person or that person. Or maybe you're going to get on LinkedIn and you're going to try and find people that way, or whatever it is. I mean, I was able to meet the first director that I worked with. I met through an artist that I was producing, which was like such an easy, lucky way to meet a great director. but she was like his assistant, and she was also a songwriter and a singer, and I was producing her little EP. And he decided to come to the studio one day and saw how I was working and was like, yeah, I think I'll let you, like, you know, I don't think he said I'll let you, but he was like, yeah, I think we could collaborate on something, you know? And that kind of sparked it. And from him, he introduced me to another director who introduced me to another director. And another piece of advice that I would give to people is, as soon as you have some good looking content, it's really important to make a reel. Like, at least in my experience, that's been a huge thing for me, like, is having a decent looking reel and having that thing that one director can send to another director and be like, you should check this guy out, you know? And it's that one video that he can watch and understand what you do, rather than being like, oh, here's a bunch of links to a bunch of different commercials he did, or like, here's one commercial that he did that's one flavor of one thing that he's capable of.
Yeah, I love that advice.
Yeah,
just one link to rule them all.
Exactly. Yeah, and like, if you put a link to my website, people can check out my reel on there. I've got like my composer reel and my video maker reel, because that's the two main things I'm doing, and I wanted it to be really clear to people of like, okay, here's my work. Here's a lot of my work in a short, easy to digest piece of content.
That's awesome. What's like also like one piece of advice that you would tell somebody who's like interested in becoming like a digital nomad? Like how do you do that? Like, what's like one thing you didn't know that you would need to know how to do?
Well, first I would start off by saying that is definitely not for everyone. I mean, there are a lot of things to the lifestyle that are, I think, would be overwhelming to a lot of people. I think what it really comes down to is a few things. The one thing that I found really important was my energy levels. And I think it's easier to maintain your energy in a certain sort of level if you are always in the same place and you kind of have a routine and you always sleep well and you always eat well and all of that. But when you're traveling and you're sleeping in different places and you're eating food from different countries that might not sit so well with your digestive system, and you're doing a lot of moving around and carrying heavy suitcases and a lot of activities that are very energy draining, I don't know, I found that like the work goes well when I'm well rested and well fed, and it is way harder if I don't sleep properly or I'm like lacking in energy. So when I was in Japan, I really like sat down and really thought about like, okay, this activity gives me energy. That activity drains my energy. This activity gives me energy. That activity drains my energy. And just trying to like set up my days and my lifestyle in a way where like, even though I was constantly moving around and being in different places, like I was able to kind of maintain an energy level that I was able to work with, you know? Because the times that I wanted to go home were the times that I didn't sleep properly and that I had to work 8 hours in the sun, you know?
Right. Wow. That's good advice, man.
Yeah. And And also just for me, like, you know, another piece of advice that I think is really important that was a huge lesson for me is that the number one priority is your health and safety. And when I mentioned that story earlier of when I broke my foot in Thailand, and the thing about that story is that like I was working in Thailand for 2 months, and, you know, I kept saying this thing to people. I kept saying, you know, my number one priority is to make a beautiful video. Like, my number one priority is to make a beautiful video. I kept saying this thing. And then at the end of the 2 months, I'm getting the most beautiful epic shot of my whole life, and it leads to an injury. And I had to just like step back after that and be like, whoa. My number 2 priority is to make a beautiful video.
Yeah.
My number 1 priority is my health and safety, because when that accident happened, I was on some remote island, like with no way to go to a hospital for like until I could go to this other island. And like, you know, luckily I had travel insurance. Wait, advice number 3.
Always buy travel insurance. Always.
Advice number 3.
I could tell that also. Yeah.
It's not expensive.
Yes.
I think it cost me like $60, and they ended up paying over $10,000. So get that travel insurance.
Slow clap right there.
Yeah.
For the travel insurance.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. So speaking of safe and healthy, how are you cooped up during this pandemic that we're all going through, and what's your, how are you working? How are you maintaining like, your business and your life?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think in a situation like this, when there's a ton of anxiety and uncertainty, just having a mission for me has been of the utmost importance, having something to work towards, because like, I don't know, when I don't have that purpose or that goal, I just get so kind of sad and lazy and tired. And I feel like that's even easier now that we're in quarantine and you don't have that same sort of energizing world to interact with. So yeah, I think I've been lucky in that I have been able to work. Like I've got some projects that I'm still working on, but I've had other projects that have, are not going to happen now because of this. So
sure,
the plan definitely has to change a little bit. But I'm also working on a couple of passion projects. So that's a good thing. But also, like I mentioned to you before the interview, with the passion projects, it's a little tricky right now because I don't know, like I feel like I'm kind of putting this pressure on myself to jump in and work on those things, but with the extra sort of I don't know, how shall we put it, the ether of uncertainty and stress, I feel like maybe it's not the best time to force myself into that kind of mindset of being constantly productive,
creative, and
so trying to find the balance
and self-actualizing is difficult in a time where it's no one's really truly fully themselves, right? Like everyone's a little bit anxious and stressed out, and
but for me, I'm used to being indoors working at a computer for long periods of time under intense amounts of stress. So it's not too far from my regular lifestyle. I mean, usually
there've been a lot of memes, right, going around about like the audio engineer. It's like life before the pandemic, hunkered down in front of a computer, like life during the pandemic. Like it's just like classic audio engineer introverts inside in their man caves.
Yeah, there's usually a little more
most of us are men, unfortunately.
For me. I'm currently in France, where you're not allowed to leave the house without the proper paperwork, and you're not allowed to go farther than 1 kilometer without the proper paperwork, and like all this stuff. So, I mean, it's been tricky. I mean, like today we weren't allowed to go outside at all for some reason. Like the police were outside telling everyone to go inside. All the grocery stores closed. Like I don't even know what's going on, man. It's kind of crazy, but the more that I think about it, the more stressed out I get. So I'm like, let me just work on this little creative project in my computer and, block everything else out.
All right, man. So I guess we'll call that a tip. Like just tune out the noise occasionally and try to just like hunker down on it.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about the whole thing, man. It's just so weird. I mean, I'm the kind of person who is constantly saying, man, life is so weird, especially with this like whole travel lifestyle that I've been living the last couple of years. It's like I've had so many experiences where I'm just like, life is so weird. And I mean, what's happening now with the coronavirus and the politics and the stock market and everything, and I'm just looking at it and I'm like, wow, this is really weird.
That sounds like a healthy way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find the healthy ways to look at it, like I said, looking at the stock market, I'm like, maybe this is a good time.
Yeah. Okay, like our generation, our generation has a chance now to make some money if we have any reserves.
Yeah.
To invest.
Something
probably
like
not
that.
Yet. Wait a little longer.
Yeah. Well,
but maybe by the time this episode airs in like a month from now or 3 weeks from now, will be a good time to invest. Well, only time will tell.
Well, actually, yeah, when this airs, we'll be like, man, when I was talking about the stock market looking like a good idea, either we're going to be like, I was a genius, or man, I was such an idiot.
Or those were the days, man.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I wish we could listen to a podcast from 1 month from now.
Oh my God. I don't want to.
Whoever invents that podcast is my hero.